This is a short video about critiques or criticisms of Kantian deontology. I told you that I would give you, for each one of these theories, the critiques of the theory, at least some of them. And as usual, we have this motif of trying to hit the bullseye, and apparently this young lady did, in fact, hit the bullseye, going to retrieve her arrow. So, with deontology, Kantian deontology, the focus is on law-based decision-making, that is, decision-making using the categorical imperatives. When the fact that they're categorical means they are always and everywhere true for everyone. And the intent is that with a good will, we would be able to identify what is our duty, what we ought to do morally, what our obligations are. Utilitarianism is a bit different. It's focused on consequences or outcomes. That's the kind of decision-making it is. It is case by case, rather than concerned about it being always and everywhere, that it would be true. Therefore, it's using hypothetical imperatives, which are, if you wish to accomplish X, then do Y, kind of imperatives or commands. And its focus is on, according to Jeremy Bentham, pleasure, and according to John Stuart Mill, happiness. So this is C.S. Lewis. Many of you are familiar with that writer, especially from the children's books, the Chronicles of Narnia. He says, "Don't the ordinary old rules about telling the truth and doing as you'd be done by tell one pretty well which kinds of fun one may have and which not? But provided the thing in itself is right, the more one likes it and the less one has to try to be good, the better. A perfect man would never act from a sense of duty. He'd always want the right thing more than the wrong one. Duty is only a substitute for love of God and of other people, like a crutch, which is a substitute for a leg. Most of us need the crutch at times, but of course it's idiotic to use the crutch when our own legs, our own loves or tastes or habits, etc., can do the journey on their own." I want to say this has some validity to it. Imagine that it's my wife's birthday or it's Mother's Day or some holiday like that, Valentine's Day, and I bring her a big, beautiful bouquet of roses. And she says to me, "Well, thank you, honey." And I say to her, "Just doing my duty. I'm doing my duty, honey." What do you think she'd do with the roses? Knowing my wife, she would throw them at me and she'd be done with. That would not be anything that had any appeal to her. She doesn't want me to do my duty. She wants me to be motivated by love. So duty is sort of like a safety net that underlies the things that we would do. When we don't have the passion, we don't have the love that we ought to have, then we're motivated by duty. He likens it to a crutch. Okay, here's some critiques. The first formulation of the categorical imperative, act according to that maxim, whereby you can at the same time will that it should be a universal law, that it has no content, it is completely abstract. That's really true. When I sit in class, we go through in class and try to think in terms of the first formulation of the categorical imperative, my students start to have like their eyes roll around in their head. They're trying to think about how they would go about making decisions, and it throws you inward upon your own judgment, and so they're trying to figure out how would they make this decision. Am I always able to commend my decision-making to other people? Then the second one is it cannot account for unique ethical choices as regards one's lifestyle, specifically being a hermit or being celibate or joining a monastic order or choosing a subsistence lifestyle, perhaps where you're trying to keep a real low carbon footprint. So a number of those things are, as you can tell, religious and especially Roman Catholic. I'm not a Roman Catholic, but those are some of the common critiques of deontology, although it needs to be said that Pope John Paul II was a big fan of Kant and of Kant's morality. It makes motive alone the only basis on which to judge an act, but don't we judge it on other things too, perhaps on outcomes to some degree, or on somebody's motivations as far as their disposition. Going on, is there really moral worth only in doing one's duty and not in one's own moral inclinations? Because that's what Kant seems to think. But are our own moral inclinations of no value at all? And then this one, which is more important as regards human relationships, principles or persons? Deontology seems to place principles above people. and it's really people that we love and care about and are connected to, we're not usually typically thinking about, I need to do my duty towards this person. It's only if we're tired or exhausted or burned out or depressed or with no energy at all or distracted that we actually are motivated by duty usually. As I said, duty seems more like a safety net for most of us. Going on, what about moral heroism? What about those people who went running into the burning buildings in New York City and Manhattan when those two airplanes, those jets, flew into the Twin Towers? What if I want to do more than my duty? Deontology seems unable to account for this. It's not your duty to go running into a burning building and put your life in danger, so it doesn't have a category for that. Is it possible for going beyond the call of duty to be our duty? And then if not, is it good to go beyond the call of duty? You can see these critiques. Okay. Is it only our actions that matter, or should our character be important to us when we address ethics? So virtue ethics is going to especially address this, the idea of being habituated in doing that which is virtue. And then there's the fact that rules can contradict each other. What do we do when we're in a moral situation where the moral rules are in conflict with one another? The terminology for that is incommensurability, and we're kind of comparing apples and oranges. How do we know which one to prioritize over the other? There's not a way to do that in deontology. What about those instances when doing your duty clearly makes the world worse? So Kant is absolutely committed to telling the truth, but sometimes telling the truth seems like it would indeed make the world worse. So you're hiding Jews during the Holocaust from the Nazis, and they come and they knock on your door, and they want to know if there's any Jews in the house. If you do your duty according to Kant, and you tell the truth, they're going to wind up in a prison camp. It seems like doing your duty makes things worse in that situation. So should outcomes be entirely disregarded? Should we always just operate on the basis of duty? That's kind of it for the critiques. So each one of these schools, as you'll see, is capable of being critiqued.